I'm Dr. Karen McDowell, and I am here today to talk about executive functioning, what it is, what it isn't, and what we mean when we say executive dysfunction. I'm hoping to provide clarification because I see this term used a lot, and it's a clinical term, and a lot of the times when I see it being tossed around, it's not being used correctly and it's not being understood correctly, and I think that's really important. So I'm hoping to provide some good science-based information for you today. I'm a licensed psychologist. I work as a therapist, as an educator, as a speaker, and I also do a lot of psychological testing, which means I sit with people who think they might have ADHD or autism or bipolar or any other kind of psychological disorder you can think of. I do testing for that. I do memory testing, and so I test for executive functioning all the time. That is a huge part of the work that I do. I see a lot of graphics going around on social media that will list a bunch of symptoms of executive dysfunction. It'll say like trouble getting started or problems planning or difficulty with motivation. And it'll list all these different symptoms. And then it'll say the ADHD brain or the Asperger's brain or the dyslexic brain or whatever. It'll have a diagnosis and it'll say, here's symptoms of that. And it's frustrating to me because executive dysfunction is something that shows up in all of psychology. We look at executive functioning, no matter what diagnosis we're looking at, no matter what's wrong, we're always asking, where is executive functioning? And it's not is your executive functioning or is it not functioning? It's on a spectrum. There's a lot of different pieces of it, and the actual functioning of each of those pieces can be on a spectrum, and it fluctuates for everyone, not just for people with more critical or more diagnosable issues. So most important to understand is that executive dysfunction is not a diagnosis in and of itself. That would be like diagnosing somebody with a headache when they have the flu. Executive functioning is just a way that you're functioning, and we measure that and we look at that. So it's not a disorder in and of itself. It's easier to think about it if you think about executive functioning as an umbrella, and underneath the umbrella you have a bunch of different departments. You have the memory department, you have the planning department, you have the adapting to change department, you have the motivation department, you have the organization department, you have all these logic, judgment, the don't blurt out what's on your mind all the time department that's like holding you back, the inhibition department. All of these different functions fall under the umbrella of executive functioning. So if any of these areas, any of these departments isn't working as smoothly, maybe as normal, then we would say that it's not functioning as well, and that's an area of executive dysfunction. So these different departments, the way that they function is they're affected by a lot of different things. They are affected, if you have a more critical or a more significant diagnosis like an ADHD or autism or bipolar, things like that they do mess with your executive functioning, sure, but also, and more commonly, your executive functioning is impacted by things like sleep, nutrition, exercise, safety, kind of these basic human things that we need to do to take care of ourselves. Those contribute to your executive functioning. That contributes to your ability to think quick, to plan, to organize, to motivate, to do all of those things you need to do to execute kind of higher order thinking, kind of move around the world like normal. And you probably know this. If you don't get enough sleep, you got memory fog the next day. If you aren't attending to nutrition, if you're not hydrated, you're going to feel more fatigued and you're going to have a harder time getting started or planning things or prioritizing things. If you're depressed, even if it's not a clinical level of depression, if you have some depressive symptoms, it is going to slow down your executive functioning. That's normal. Everyone's executive functioning ebbs and flows in different ways, just depending on how things are going for you. So if you find that you are having problems with different areas of executive functioning, that's normal. And if you can kind of identify those and you can say, man, I'm having a lot of trouble remembering things lately. Maybe I need to look at my sleep or my nutrition, or I'm having trouble prioritizing. I'm not sure what to do. Maybe my anxiety is overwhelming me and I need to get support for that. One of the problems that I see a lot is people saying, oh, I have executive dysfunction. Well, remember, there's a bunch of departments under that umbrella of executive dysfunction. So if somebody comes to me and says, I have executive dysfunction, I don't know what that means. That could mean any number of things for them. And also that could be indicative of any number of things in terms of a clinical issue. So again, that headache example, if somebody showed up to a doctor and said, I have a headache, and the doctor said, oh, well, you have this very rare disease called whatever, then you would be like, that doesn't make any sense. A headache could mean all kinds of things. And that's the same thing about executive functioning and disruptive executive functioning, is that it could mean any number of things. So if you feel like you have executive dysfunction and it is to the degree that it's disrupting your life, it's messing up your work, it's messing up your relationships, it's messing up your sense of self, if it's bad, then you need to get an assessment. You don't need to self-diagnose. And oftentimes a primary care doctor is not equipped and doesn't have the knowledge to do that diagnosing. So it's a good idea to go and see a psychologist that does assessment, the same kind of work that I do. There's tons of us out there. Go and get a psychological assessment, and you can find out. We have lots of tests. We have lots of ways of figuring out what that executive dysfunction is about, where it's coming from, and what we need to do to address it. Now, if you notice that you have executive dysfunction, but it's not that bad, it's not messing up your life that bad, you can intervene on it yourself. You know, all of these brain games, all of these like cognitive things that you see, these apps and things like that, all of those are working on your executive functioning. You can work on improving, again, sleep, nutrition, taking care of the basic hygiene things that can impact depression and anxiety, working on your anxiety, going to therapy. These things are going to help. Trauma, grief, those cause executive dysfunction. I mean, there's just so much that can impact it. And it worries me to see people tossing the term around kind of broadly when it can actually be quite serious. Okay, quick recap. Everyone's emotional functioning ebbs and flows. Emotional functioning is an umbrella that has lots of different functions in it that have to do with memory, with planning, with moving throughout a nuanced life. Everybody's different functions ebb and flow. That's normal. It's easier to think of it on a spectrum than a yes, it's working, no, it's not working. Think about each of these different departments kind of on a spectrum. Well, my memory department is doing good today, but man, my planning and organizing not doing so good today. There are lots of things that can cause executive functioning. Do not self-diagnose. Get help if it's really bad, or if it's not really bad, just intervene on your own and do some things to make your brain a little bit sharper. Okay, it's time for Benny's bonus treats. This is the point in the video where Benny gets a treat. Come here, Benny. Want a treat? Come here, buddy. So Benny's here and we're gonna give him his treat because he paid attention through the whole video. Here is your Benny bonus treat. If you do your homework assignment and you comment below, I did it, then Benny gets another treat from you, and I will video myself giving him that treat from you on my story, and you can see him getting his little reward. So here's your homework for this video. Think about your own executive functioning. Think about all these different departments. You can look up, you can Google the different areas of executive functioning if you want. Think about your own executive functioning and find out or figure out which areas are stronger and which areas are weaker. Just kind of make a map of it, kind of see where you are. That's your only assignment. Just kind of see where you are on your executive functioning, get some insight into that, and then comment, I did it, below, and Benny will get a little bonus treat. Look at his cute little neck. What are you today? You got pineapples today. You got a little pineapple handkerchief on. He's so cute. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please like, comment, share, whatever you can do to support. It makes a huge difference in my ability to keep making these videos. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.